You are listening to 1F914, the show that really makes you thinking emoji. Today's episode is brought to you by, American politics. I'm sorry. Cory Booker and Beto O'Rourke are getting memed on so hard right now. Oh my God, it is beautiful. Except it's kind of dumb. I saw a meme on Facebook comparing Democratic candidates be like to Peggy Hill saying, yo habla español, and other really bad Spanishisms. Here's the thing. Their Spanish was not Peggy Hill bad. Their Spanish may not have been fluid, but they are not Peggy Hill bad. Okay? Let's just get that out of the way right now. The reality is sure, they're not going to speak it as well as a native speaker. No one ever will unless they've been speaking it for on a regular basis for like decades upon decades. Just like you wouldn't expect a person from another country who learned their language coming to America and learning English to be a 100% perfect English speaker. You shouldn't expect somebody in the reverse situation to be a perfect the other thing speaker. In this case, Spanish. The entire purpose of knowing a language is to convey an idea. And if they are more capable of conveying what they're trying to say to the audience they're trying to get it across to in that audience's language, even if they speak that language poorly, than if they were to try and convey it in English and be like, well, it's America, you should learn the language, then you can't fault them for that. You can't fault them for not speaking it perfectly, because that's not the point. The point is not to be a Spanish speaker. The point is to speak Spanish well enough to be understood by Spanish speakers. And while I don't speak Spanish, it did not seem as though that were the case. Now, on the other end of that, there's a lot of people saying, well, they're just pandering to the Latin vote. They're just trying to get the votes by virtue signaling and pretending to be all supportive of the immigrants and the things that are like what haves. I don't really know. You get my point. People are saying that they're pandering to the Latin vote. Now, sure, you can look at it that way. You can look at it as, oh my God, they don't care about you. They don't care about your life. They don't care about your plight. They only want you because you're just a number. It's a numbers game to get them into office, okay? But here's the thing. All right, maybe they're pandering. You could look at it that way. Or you could look at it as the fact that they care enough, they value the Latin vote enough to pander to it. Now, I really hope that Spanish-speaking people see that. I hope they don't look at it as this immediate knee-jerk, oh my God, they're just pandering for my vote reaction. Because yeah, maybe they are. But the thing is, everybody is being pandered to by politicians. The fact that these politicians valued your vote enough to pander to you specifically says a lot about them and a lot about how they view you and your demographic. They care about you. You're not just you're not a throwaway community. You're powerful in their eyes, and they want to make sure you are properly represented. Or at least they know that you have enough voting power to represent you as far as it will self-serve them. And maybe that's the best you can ever do. Like, you're never going to get the perfect candidate, because realistically, sure, the entire Latin community could vote for whatever Latin politician runs, but he's probably not going to get elected, at least not now, at least not in our current climate, political climate, if you will. The same with any other situations. Like, you got to take what you can get, and if it comes down to, if we have a viable candidate who's not Ted Cruz, that's of Hispanic/Latin origin, sure, vote for him in the finals. Like, if it comes down to Mr. Whitey and Mr. Darker Shade of White, vote for Mr. Darker Shade of White. But really, if it's like they've got one ticket on the ballot and nobody is supporting them, then maybe vote for the guy who will still work for you as well as work for everybody else. And I've said this to people before and got shit for it, but the way you should vote is not you shouldn't vote with only yourself in mind. Now, you shouldn't vote with not yourself in mind. The idea that you should completely neglect where you are in the world and your demographic and your lifestyle in favor of something else or the greater good, I don't know. But you should try and find a candidate who has everybody's interests in mind, and that is the person who should get the vote. Now, of course, there's going to be situations where that person may seem at first like they are a good a good choice for a multicultural world, but then there's little insidious things under the surface that bubble their way to the top throughout the course of them casting votes in government things. And in those situations, they're not the candidate. So it's not really that difficult of a concept. Like, okay, so that's not the person you should have been, that's not the horse you should have bet on, but maybe there's another horse who does have everybody's best interest in mind. And that doesn't mean, when I say everybody, I don't mean literally every person, because that's impossible. And really, at the end of the day, screw rich people. Like, can we just all agree on that? Just screw rich people. If the vast majority of people are not rich, if the interests that a politician represents is the interest of the majority, the vast majority, like the 90%, or even the 95%, or even just the 85%, clearly they are not representing the rich. So. And that's another thing that people were kind of criticizing Beto about in regards to the recent debate, is he kind of dodged a question about taxing the super rich. Now, that I don't like, but at the same time, he's still at a point where he needs to appear to the people with the money and the campaign funding like he has their interest in mind. The problem is, I don't know if he actually has an attitude, has the screw the rich attitude, or if he's double talking because he does care about the super rich and doesn't want to screw them over, because he has no intention of following through on any of those campaign promises if he says we're gonna tax the super rich 70% or whatever it is. See, and so that's I kind of lost my train of thought, but that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Screw the rich. Screw the rich is where we're at. And that brings me to this whole idea, like, well, it's unfair to this group to do a thing because of reasons, and like with forgiving student loan debt or making education free. It's like, oh, well, that's a slap in the face of all these people who have accumulated their student debt and paid it off, or that's a slap in the face of all these people who had to work 60 hours a week while going to college and raising 4 kids and taking care of their wife and their ex-wife and their parents. Like, first of all, that is no one. That has never been anyone. And if they were, they are a psychopath who probably died of like an aneurysm when that entire house of cards fell apart. Now, yeah, you got people who are like got their brains torn in all different directions, but just because someone else went through something in the past doesn't mean someone in the future has to go through the same thing. That's what progress is all about. That is what advancement is all about. That is what technology and the growth of society is all about. Like, that would be like, imagine they're sitting there like, back during when they're like deciding whether to abolish slavery. Someone walked in, man, a slave who was about to die. He's like 90 years old. Like his master said, "Okay, you're getting up there. You've served our family so long. Like, we're just gonna let you take it easy for a while." And he's like, I had to serve these people all these years, and it's a slap in my face to abolish slavery now. Like, imagine if that was the case. Would you have taken that logic seriously? No, you wouldn't have. Because it's garbage logic, and it's garbage logic today. Like, it's not the same situation. It's not as extreme, but it's still transferable. Like, just because people went through a thing doesn't mean someone else has to go through the thing if that thing sucks. if it's a broken system. It's like telling a person who's in prison, been in prison for 20 years, oh my God, and it's been used for the legalization of marijuana too. Like, you've had people saying like, oh man, all these people who have served like tons of time in prison for these like ridiculous laws that they broke that shouldn't be laws anymore. Like, if we decriminalize the things, then it's like a slap in the face of the people who spent time for doing the things. And first of all, decriminalizing something does not change the reality that it was a crime when they committed the crime. I like forgiving the people once it's no longer a crime, but then the idea that, okay, well, they were wrongfully imprisoned if you legalize it now, and then we're going to have to pay reparations or what haves. It's like, no, you won't, because it was still a crime when they did it. Like, the fact that they're now getting out of jail because we've decided, well, it shouldn't be a crime anymore, like, that's a, hey, there you go. Like, they should be, like, I'm not saying they should be grateful, but they should be at least happy to not be in jail anymore. And in some more extreme cases, yeah, maybe throw them some dollars, maybe support them reintegrating in society, because like it really, marijuana never should have been illegal in the first place, and decriminalizing it now is not a slap in the face of anyone. Like I don't care if you disagree with me, because if you disagree with me on this, you're just simply put wrong. Okay, that is the case. You are entitled to opinions. You are not entitled to objective fallacies or demonstrably fake news, if you will. So, yeah. Speaking of which, that brings me to another topic: loot boxes. I guess apparently, I don't know if it's been a nationwide thing or if it's just some locations, but apparently a law was recently passed which basically ruled that loot boxes are in fact gambling and should be regulated as such. And Dick Masterson, oh my God, he went full clown on Facebook, because I follow his page on Facebook, and I'm in his podcast group. I haven't really listened to the podcast in a while, but I still follow him, and I still am part of that community. And he just went full speed, like super hard on the memeing it, trying to make it be like, oh man, this is ridiculous. This is overreach. Like, the government shouldn't have say over this. It's not this. It's totally not gambling. It's totally something different. He compared. He showed a picture of one of those capsule machines, the quarter or 50-cent thing where you put in the money and you get a toy, saying like, oh man, this thing's a slot machine. It's exactly the same. Now, that sounds like something somebody would say as a meme, but he was being serious. Like, he was being serious, saying like, oh, well, if loot boxes are gambling, this thing's a slot machine. And it's like, okay, I understand your point, but it is a stupid point. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard any human being say unironically. Imagine unironically thinking that loot boxes being considered gambling means that capsule machines are slot machines. When you put in 25 cents or 50 cents into a capsule machine and get out a toy, you are 100% guaranteed, A, to get a toy, and B, that the value of that toy is going to be somewhere between nothing and the money you paid. Now, maybe it'll be exactly a match to what the value of the money you paid, but usually it's like a 10-cent thing that you're paying 50 cents for, but you're never going to get screwed. I mean, you're always going to get screwed 100% of the time, because it's always garbage, but you know what you're getting, and you were guaranteed to get a value that you paid. And it's not going to be a different value than anything else in that machine. It's all going to be garbage. It's all going to be cheap things to make a little kid shut up for 5 minutes. Whereas with a loot box, you are guaranteed to get screwed 90% of the time, and then you might get something that is vastly more valuable than what you spent. And on a lot of these games, there's a chance of getting nothing at all. So, capsule machine, you put in a quarter, you get out a thing that's worth a quarter or less 100% of the time. Loot box, you spend $8, $16, $35. Some of the time you might get nothing. at all. You just spent your money, didn't get anything out of it. Some of the time you might get something worth half the value you paid, like if you had just bought it from the microtransaction shop. Sometimes you might get a value equal to what you paid. And then other times you might get a super high value item, but like it scales down drastically. So it's like you are most likely to get nothing. You are a little less than most likely to get something less value than you paid. You are maybe going to get something equal to what you paid, and you are highly unlikely, maybe 5%, maybe 3%, maybe even only 1% chance. So 1 in 100 people are going to get that super nice, fancy, iridescent, shining, heart sparkly freaking knife skin for what the heck is the name? CSGO, where for some reason knife skins are super valuable. You know what I mean? So now let's go back to this comparison. Either you're A, going to be putting a quarter into a machine and getting a quarter's worth of merchandise 100% of the time, or you're going to be spending a ludicrous amount of money and like your heart's going to be racing. You're like, what am I going to get? It's going to be dang it, I keep hitting things. You're going to have all these chemicals in your brain, which are the same chemicals which are in the brain of people who are addicted to gambling. And I don't know how many more analogies I can make. I'm kind of running out of breath. I'm kind of sweating to death in this room because it's probably almost 100 degrees outside, and I'm inside of a closet like coated with fabric and foam. Like the heat stays in here. It really does. It's going to be nice in the winter, but right now, I've been trying to figure out a way of ventilating it and kind of pumping some cold air in here, but I have no idea how I'm going to do that. And even if I could figure it out, it's gonna introduce more noise into the space. And the entire purpose of the space is to have as little outside noise and as little reverb as possible. So if I start pumping in this background sound that's continuous for the entire thing, it's going to completely defeat the purpose of this space. So I guess I just have to suffer. Otherwise, what was it all for? It's if I ventilate this space, it's a slap in the face of podcasters who have suffered and died in tight, cramped quarters for the last, how long have podcasts been a thing? But yeah, loot boxes are 100% gambling, and Dick Masterson is a clown. At least in this regard. There's a lot of things which he's got some good points about, but then again, there's a lot of things which he's just straight up got the honk honk nose going on, and the curly hair, and the makeup with the smile. Okay. All right. So I've talked about some things. I've made some noise. I've probably peaked a bunch of times, and I am sorry about that. I saw the light flicker here and there. I ain't gonna edit this. I ain't going to cut it. I ain't going to chop it. What I am probably going to do is I am probably going to give the intro at the beginning. I'm going to record that separately and drop it in. But generally, I ain't doing jack. So thank you for listening. Be sure to do follows on the Instabird. That's Instagram and Twitter at Here's Jolly. I've also got a Facebook page by Here's Jolly. You follow me there too. The more people who follow me there, the more likely I am to post. I post occasionally, but rarely. The most likely place you're going to be to stay in touch and stay up to date with me and the fact that I haven't died yet of whatever is going to be Twitter. I post on Twitter a lot, at least by my standards. I used to not post at all, but now I post. I don't post nearly as much as Justin Wang and other, I guess you could say, professional Twitterers, but I do post, so you will see the things from me if you like me. Chances are you are already a subscriber of mine, and chances are if you are a subscriber of mine, you probably are already following me on Twitter. But if you are not following me on Twitter and you are a subscriber of mine and you have a Twitter, do the follows. Thank you. Yeah, do it, please. I need it. I need this in my life right now. Okay. And did I say do subscribe? Do that. And share this with people you think might find it interesting. Who might enjoy it. Might enjoy the sound of my voice and my non-visual antics, if you will. And of course, don't die. Like I'm probably about to from this heat.